This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. Today's guest, Dr. Dan Alleman, Boulder, Colorado. Dan is a highly spoken person in the fee-for-service dental practice world who really understands what it takes to drop those insurances when he had 70% of his practice underneath the umbrella of one insurance company, how he got out of it, how he dealt with fear. That fear was a big factor for him and limited him from doing a lot of things he wanted to do. Now he's out of it and he's more than happy to speak. It's a good conversation, a good friend. Really enjoyed talking with Dan. The Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast, as always, is brought to you by Kettenbach Dental. They are excited. Kettenbach's excited to announce first major advancement in fluoride varnish, Proficel. No alcohol and no resin. Instead, patients get the muco-adhesive dimethicone gel delivering the product with no grit. So your teeth will feel smooth and silky when it's all done. Contact Kettenbach today for more details. That's Proficel product in Kettenbach's arsenal of great products. Call 877-532-2123. Please, folks, if you like the podcast and the YouTube video, click like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Trying to grow this, trying to get this out to as many people as we can. I think the message is valid, and I think it's great to have everybody able to hear it. And we really appreciate you. We appreciate Kettenbach for helping us out, covering a lot of our costs. Okay, have a great day. If you don't like it, please tell me, sunnyspira@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest on the show, same thing, hit me up. Have a great day. Enjoy the show, folks.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet, our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns, and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast, and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast, Dr. Sunny Spira. We have an old friend that's joined us today, Dr. Dan Alleman, and we've had Dan on a couple of times before as almost like a consultant. We did a little thing with a dentist who was nervous about dropping Delta Dental, going fully out of network, and Dan's story and situation is really inspiring because he had a huge Delta Dental practice and he went out of all insurances a few years back, and he's been completely free of any insurance, and he's a fee-for-service dentist in Boulder, Colorado. Let me give you a little background. A little tough getting it out of him, I'll tell you. It was hard to get this background out of him, but let's go with it, man. Dr. Dan, he grew up in Ohio, but fell in love with Colorado as a teenager when he backpacked around the Gunnison area with his high school church group. As an Eagle Scout, he grew up camping, canoeing, and dreaming of the great outdoors. He remembered as a teenager became all a reality in 2007 when he made Colorado his home. He attended Walsh University, where he earned his Bachelor of Science in Biology. He also sold computers during college for Gateway and fell with the idea of combining computers with biology to offer cutting-edge dentistry. That's kind of cool. I remember Gateway. Wow. He went on to earn a doctor of dental surgery degree from the prestigious State University of New York at Buffalo, another fellow Buffalo Bull, good friend, great school.
Absolutely.
After graduating from there, he completed his advanced education AEGD residency in Alamosa, Colorado. And as a fellow in the International College of Dentists, he's recognized as one of the leading dentists in the country. Every year he completes at least 100 hours of a continuing ed and he was the first dentist in Boulder to use a laser to do composite restorations without using anesthetic, and has been using advanced lasers since 2014. An avid humanitarian, Dr. Dan participated in mission work in Ghana, West Africa, completing charity dental work, and he's also served as an externship dentist with the Indian Health Services in White Earth, Minnesota. He and his wife enjoy spending time with their 3 children, take full advantage of the raw beauty of Colorado with cycling, mountain biking, hiking, snowboarding, and skiing. And if anybody knows him, he's an outdoor guy, man. He's always doing stuff out there, which is cool. And he has ridden his bike across Iowa twice during the annual
Ragbri.
ride. I was just going to give you the letters because I can't pronounce that. So pretty cool stuff. Welcome, Dan. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Sonny. Thanks for having me back on.
Good to have you on, man. We got
quite the intro, making me all happy to be here. It's great.
You made me go to your website, made me do some extra work, which
I figured I got to keep it interesting, right?
So tell me, growing up, what was it like? What were your parents doing? What was it like for you and your home?
Yeah, so my dad worked as a groundskeeper at my high school, actually. And he had that position from the time that I was in middle school all the way through college. And my mom was a preschool teacher and was my when I was in elementary school, she was a teacher's aide, and so she followed me from preschool all the way through to the end of elementary school. And then I grew up in Greentown, Ohio, which is in Stark County near the Football Hall of Fame, and very proud to have grown up there. It was a great place to be a kid. And I went to high school there and also college. So didn't leave until I went to Buffalo for dental school and graduated there in 2007 and made my way out to Colorado. And
you had to behave in school, I'm sure, with your mom and dad around.
Oh my gosh. It was, I always joke that I'm glad that I went to college there instead of in Boulder, because I would not have focused if I was in college out here. There's no way, especially with all the, if all the stuff going on with Coach Prime right now was back then, I would not have paid attention like I had to when I was in Ohio. So,
all right. So you're in Buffalo. Any instructors or any curriculum strike your fancy as something maybe you want to either focus on or specialize in?
Well, when I was at Buffalo, we were probably one of the first, I think we might have been the second class to have used digital x-rays. And, because we still had to do the old style dark room and.
Yep. The Perry Pro 2, and you had to put your hands in there. That's what I did.
Cone beam was probably in its infancy, but as you said in my bio there, I used to sell computers for Gateway. I forget what the stats were, but almost every household in America had one, or a Dell.
Yeah.
So it was the 2-horse race back then. But being able to take technology and combine it with dentistry was definitely what I wanted to focus on. And at that time, I didn't really have a clear picture of what that would mean. But as time went by and as more digital things came onto the market, and we started using, like I said in my bio there, a laser back in 2014. I mean, just trying to get the combination of technology to deliver high quality dentistry was pretty much my focus. And when you're in dental school, it's a different world. And then when you get out, you then start to really discover yourself and figure out, okay, what kind of dentist do I want to be? What do I want my career to look like? And how do I get there? And, as of late, it's also been now 3D printers, and I'm looking at photogrammetry next to be able to do full mouth, all on hybrid cases ago that we did with analog conversion, and it's awesome. But I'm always looking for ways to do it better. And, going back to
Did
dental school.
did you take any laser work with Charles Lebo at
I did not. We were, we
did
had
a ton
pretty
of research?
limited. Yeah, I think we had pretty limited exposure to lasers. I mean, diodes existed, but we didn't really. Right now, I mean, I have a CO2 laser, I have a Soleus, so that's what I use almost on a daily basis. We're using it for all of our fillings, all of our composite restorations, class 2s, 5s, 1s, gingivectomies. We can do lip and tongue releases with it. Just things that I wouldn't have known about until I got out of school and then started doing continuing education and really starting to learn more about it. I think that, that was definitely the first thing in the realm of technology was my laser. And then, the rest is history. I mean, we've got like cone beam and prime scan and doing CIREC in-house. And I wasn't a CIREC believer until the prime scan came out. And then I was like, okay, this is what I've been waiting for.
That's
And
cool.
it's very exciting because it's just things that we could not have done before, and to be able to deliver the dentistry to the quality and to the level that I expect it to be at, to be able to do that in one visit or much fewer visits than it would have been done in the past. I mean, that's always the goal. So
Okay, so 2007 rolls around and you did your residency in Colorado. Was that a driving force to go to Colorado, or was it just a good residency you hooked up with?
well, so when I first came to Colorado, I was 16. So that was 1996, and backpacked for a week. And the moment that I got back to Ohio, I was like, I am living in Colorado. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to do it. And, it was one of those things where I got something in my mind and I was just going to do it. And that's pretty much how I've approached most of life. And I had an opportunity in Alamosa and was down there for my first year here. And then in 2008, moved up to Boulder. And I found a practice that was unfortunately struggling. The seller had some health issues. And so I was able to go in there and basically take the practice over for a little bit more than the cost of the equipment, which at that time wasn't nearly the things that I have now, but it got my foot in the door and it gave me an opportunity that otherwise I probably would not have had. But, I figured, why not? Let's do this, borrow some more.
So you do a residency 1 year.
Yep.
And did you start looking to purchase a practice? And did you start looking in Boulder?
Yeah, about halfway through. And
what started? Did you look geographically all over Colorado? What was your process to get to that point where you went to Boulder? What was your process?
So the process was more so just what is the practice doing right now? What is it? Is it a where do they mainly focus?
But how did you?
Practice?
What I mean was you're in your residency program, so halfway through you decide you're gonna look for something that you're gonna buy. So take us through your mindset for the next step. So you want to buy something. Do you look statewide? Do you focus on areas? Do you look at growth? I mean, what is your process to?
So from a demographics, it was at least for Colorado, the majority of the population lives along the Front Range. And the Front Range, for those of you who don't know what that is basically the I-25 corridor. So it's Fort Collins in the north, then Boulder and where I live, then Denver, then Colorado Springs, and then Pueblo, and then that's pretty much north to south. And the Front Range is where the mountains begin. It's where we joke around that it's where Kansas ends and it's where the mountains begin. And so I was mostly focused on Front Range practices simply because of being a population center. But then also I looked at a couple of mountain town practices, one in Frisco, Colorado, which is near Breckenridge, and the other in Telluride, Colorado, which is down in the southwestern corner. The practice in Telluride was incredible. But much like college, if I had bought that practice, I probably would not have made it because I would have been snowboarding too much and not working. So,
Okay, so how do you find these opportunities? What resources did
so,
you use?
so I had worked with a practice broker, Larry Chatterley with CTC Associates out of Denver, and basically was able to get a list of practices that were available for sale. And I had also looked on the Colorado Dental Association's page for
Okay.
practices for sale in their classified section.
Yeah,
And,
smart.
and maybe at that time, because it was 2007, I probably looked in the phone book too, but.
How about the ADA? Did you get anything on the ADA publications, JAD or anything?
No, I mostly was just local or
Okay.
statewide. And
Mhm.
the practices that I had looked at were, like I said, in Telluride, in Frisco, Boulder. There was one in Colorado Springs as well.
So what did you do? Did you call them? Did you email them back then?
Yeah, it was over email, just trying to introduce myself and basically here's who I am and here's what I would like to do. And basically what happened with the Boulder practice was what the practice that I'm in now was the dentist, as I said, had health issues and was looking for a private seller. He specifically said he did not want to sell to a corporate entity. And at that time, the corporate entities were not as expansive as they are now. But I felt like that was a really good thing because I could show that I was a good fit for that practice, because being an independent practitioner and wanting to stay independent and wanting to be that more relationship driven practice, it worked out really well. And being able
Okay,
to
so
take over.
now health issues. So I'm assuming he wants a faster transition. Do you want to share what what it looked like to purchase it, what the practice was doing, what your
Sure.
cost was?
Yeah. So the practice was on a decline for about 2 years.
Okay.
So he tried to stay in practice and to keep going, and had some associates in that decided that they did not want to buy the practice. I was not an associate in this practice at that time, so I really was coming in with only the knowledge that was on the sales sheet, right? And so I was looking through, and at that time I also did not know what I know now. There's things that I probably would have done differently with chart audits and
Of
looking at
course.
AR and understanding what I was really buying when it came to how PPO heavy everything was. And he had a couple of HMO plans as well. The interesting thing about it was he was a pediatric dentist who went back to general dentistry probably 5 or 6 years prior to having his health complications. And so he was seeing everybody, adults, children, families, he was even doing limited orthodontics with wires, which I don't do, but there were things that I found appealing to the practice because it was the ability to see everyone. And then I could essentially decide, okay, which way do I want to take this practice and how do I want to make it my own? And so, yeah, I mean, that is essentially the process, was just meeting him. And then I also met with his daughter, who she was his power of attorney. So we talked, and his wishes were just to sell to an individual dentist. And
What was the practice numbers? Did you like, what was it grossing, and what was the?
it was grossing about $425,000.
All right, so a little less than 40 a month. And what was your price?
So I got it for 400.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still not cheap in my book. You're paying
No.
almost dollar for dollar on a practice that's
Correct.
declining,
Correct.
right?
And so
Okay.
there's probably some things that at this stage of my career, knowing what I know now and how to read balance sheets and things that they didn't teach you in dental school, right? Being able to work a better deal. But I feel like, again, I got a great deal because it was my opportunity to do it. And if I could have backed them off 10, 20, 30, 50,000, would it have made a difference in the long run? Not where I'm at now, considering how much better we're doing now than when I started.
It's funny. I talked to Delaney Spalding, and we had this conversation. And I remember when I bought my practice from being an associate to going on my own. And I remember saying to a good friend of mine, Don Bronsky, the orthodontist, and I said, if it's like 40,000, it's too high. he says, Sonny, is $40,000 amortized over 10 years worth your ability to be independent and on your own and have your own freedom?
Right. Right. And that's what it came down to for me as well, is that I wanted to stay
Yeah.
independent and have the opportunity to be independent. Nobody in my family is a dentist. I'm the first on my dad's side of the family to go to college. So, for me, it was, I have to figure out how to do this. And that was the opportunity that was presented to me that had the best fit. And I took it, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I made it my own.
So
So
talk about what the practice actually was. You already hinted at it. They were in every plan, 8 PPOs, HMOs. Tell people what an HMO is. I know what it is, but
so
it's a brutal way of dental practice.
it is. It's very, very low reimbursements, and I'm talking like 20th percentile type reimbursements. And it's more of a managed care type scenario where you're having to see tons and tons of people to be able to at least break even. And the problem that I see is you can't really outrun that, because there's a limit to how much you can produce as one person.
Was it like a capitation plan or no?
Well, because I never signed up with them, I don't
Right.
know the exact specifics. I do remember seeing that he had about a 15% HMO practice.
15% HMO. And
Mhm.
how much PPO?
The rest was PPO, and then I'm sure there was some cash pay that was scattered in there, but the vast majority of the practice was PPO.
Okay.
And so when we're looking at numbers, I mean, I was going through things based off of historical numbers and not necessarily what could potentially be going forward. I wasn't looking at treatment plans the way that I would have now and really kind of dig in. I did an overview, but it's almost like you don't know what you're looking at until you've been doing it, and or actually being taught how to do it. But I was very convinced that I was going to take this thing and turn it around. And it took a long time to do that, but I did it eventually. I'd
Well,
say,
talk about beginning. What did you
yeah,
do? Since
in
you
the
didn't
beginning,
sign on the HMO, I'm assuming all those patients left.
they left. And so my monthly gross for the first month that I was there was $23,000.
Uh-huh.
Looking at all of the notes that I owed, and I was
Yeah.
going, I don't think this is going to work. But
What was your break even? Do you remember what you needed to make to pay your bills?
to pay off everything, my break even was somewhere around 70,000 a month.
70,000 a month?
Yeah.
Do you have big school debt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, $250,000, which nothing compared to now, right? I mean, it's doubled.
No. Back
But,
then,
but back then,
$250,000
you
in
leave with
20
$250,000. That's enough to buy a house in the Midwest.
right?
And
In 2008,
and
when the recession is hitting.
yeah, I bought my practice in February of 2000. I closed on it in February of 2008. I saw my first patient March 3rd, 2008, and then the housing market collapsed 2 months later. So what I had
Your
to,
timing sucks.
yeah, it sucked. It was terrible, and so, but all I can say is the where the timing was good was, had I waited another 2 or 3 months, I probably wouldn't have gotten a loan to buy the practice.
Good point.
Because you got to look at the silver lining and everything, right?
It's always there.
The timing was such that the only thing I had to my name was student loan debt, and I had no assets. I had nothing. So it was just, had to go in and figure this thing out. And I'm glad that the timing worked the way that it did. It was not easy, though. It took me 3 years to really get a handle on things, because as the housing market collapsed and foreclosures in this area didn't necessarily skyrocket. They weren't as bad as like Phoenix or Vegas or some of the places in Florida, but it was definitely an economic force for sure, and people were affected by it tremendously. So when I look back on that time, I'm glad that things happened the way that they did, because if I had waited, or if I didn't even have the opportunity, 60 days later, I probably wouldn't have gotten the loan.
So how did you get yourself out of it? How did you work yourself out of it? I'm just assuming you put your nose to the grindstone.
That
You
was
just
it.
dealt with the insurance. and you just built and built and built. But what did
That
you?
was it. And it was learning, it was taking continuing ed to really learn how to decipher EOBs. I took a coding course, and to really learn how the EOB structure is, like how to read it, what I'm looking at as far as, how much am I writing off? And at that time, I didn't have a choice because I inherited what was there with the exception of the HMOs. And, at that time, I was probably writing off about 30% of what UCR would be for my area. And it was just try to outproduce it, right? Because that's all you see. And as a new graduate, you think, well, I have to compete with all of these corporate places that are double, triple booking patients. So I never did accelerated hygiene, but we started considering doing that. And I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick to my principles, what I believe in. It's going to take an hour to do a traditional prophy appointment. I'm going to take my time and do it right. Did it hurt me financially? Probably, because at that time I wasn't able to charge what I needed to, which is what I'm able to do now, being fee for service. But looking at it from that time, during that time, it was okay, we've got to get quicker. I've got to, and not quicker by cutting corners, but just becoming a more proficient dentist. Because you leave dental school with basic skills, and then you go through residency and you start accumulating more skills because of the time that you have. The time limits are there. You can't do an occlusal filling in 3 hours like you could in dental school. So you have to be able to move through things quicker. But it was also analyzing schedules and how do we make the schedule flow, and how do I use the auxiliary staff to help? How do I, at that time I was using EDAs, but I don't do that anymore because I was redoing a lot of work, and that was very painful financially as well. But I learned a lot of things during that time, and it also gave me that opportunity to become the dentist that I am now, because going in not knowing very much, and then probably, like I said, year 3 was when I started to get a little more comfortable. And then when year 5 and year 7 hit, that's actually year 7 is when I started dropping insurances.
So what did it look like financially after about 5 years? What were you at? You had to be well over your 70 a month because you have a.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say we were well over, because we were still fighting the massive headwind of the write-offs. And so, I mean, from a production standpoint, sure, it's higher than that, but from an actual collectible amount, it's pretty much you're riding slightly above break even when you're trying to fight the headwind of all of the write-offs. I mean,
Okay. So 3 to 5 years, you're like at, eking out a living.
Oh yeah, it's walking a tightrope. I mean,
Okay.
there's no room for error. So that's extra stressful as well. And again, had I gone back and looked at it from a different lens and go, okay, I'll come in, there will be attrition. I'm not signing up for the HMOs. I mean, there's certain things that I probably purchased that didn't exist from a collection standpoint. But again, that's okay, because looking back, I mean, I had to do it. And
So how did you, with it being tight, how did you budget? Because you talked about CE, which is not cheap.
right.
How did you budget? Did you say, listen, I'm going to commit this much to this. I'm going to commit this much to investing in some technology?
Yeah.
Because you're not dealing with a massive surplus. You're dealing with a very tight.
Right. So what I did was for the first, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, I did my own IT, and it was enough at the time. It was enough for me to be able to do the things I had to do. With all of the cybersecurity issues right now, there's no way that I'd be able to do that, because I would have to then actually go back to school to learn even more things, right? So back then, with things being a little bit more rudimentary compared to how they are now, I saved money on services like that. We tried to look at the least expensive materials. Sometimes that would come back and bite you, because then you're redoing things if the bond wasn't very good, or there's things that I've learned that it's worth spending money on better things that you're not going to have to then go back and redo, because it costs even more to have to go back in and do it again. it's, I don't know, the lease that I was in, the building that I was in continually went up every single year. The space that I was in was also very large from like a waiting room standpoint because of it being a pediatric practice in prior years. Uh, I didn't need that much waiting room space, and I've learned that as well. Where I'm at now, I actually own my space now, so I've got a smaller waiting area, and we've utilized every square foot of that place exactly to maximize efficiency without overpaying for things.
What did it
So,
look like? What was your layout? How many operatories you have?
so 6 operatories, which is
Six.
how many I have now, but I was in a 3,400 square foot space, and I'm in a 2,500 square foot space now.
Huh.
And so it was about 1,000
Can be
square
done.
feet than I needed it to be. And there, you know, there's things that you learn. And it was, again, I assumed the existing lease, and I didn't have any money to be able to move the practice at that time. So it was, let's dig in and roll up our sleeves and do this. And a lot of it was really just like brute force to
Okay.
get through those first 5 years. I mean, it was, again, it was, I
Mhm.
didn't really feel comfortable with anything until about year 3. And then year 5 was when I was like, okay, I don't feel like I'm going to go bankrupt every single day. So
Okay.
this is kind of
So
nice.
now so the seed is planted, because you keep seeing these write-offs. But I mean,
Yes.
you described it perfectly, headwind. So when did you say, listen, we're out? When did you finally make that commitment? And then how did you strategize?
So 2014. So let's see, actually it was my 7th year.
Yeah, so
So
2015.
20, so yeah, around 2015, I was looking at, okay, what do I need to do to start getting out of these contracts? And I had done the negotiation stuff. I used Unlock the PPO. There was one or two other ones that I'd used, and I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head.
Sure.
But what I found was when you do those negotiations, they'll raise them and then they'll quietly decrease them. So you pay all
Hard to
this
believe it.
money, you pay, six, seven, $10,000 to negotiate with a negotiation company. The insurance company will act like they're your friend and say, oh yeah, we'll be happy to give you more. Just give us your top 10 codes. And what they do is then they lower it in other areas to try to equalize whatever but they make it look like you're getting an increase. And then you go through the next couple of years after the negotiation has been done. And then you go, wow, the write-offs are creeping back up again. Why is that? And then you look back and you go, oh, I haven't been paying attention to all of these EOBs because there's too many of them coming in, and I shouldn't have to be the one that does that. I thought I paid all this money to have these fees increased. But over time, they cut a hole in the boat and the water leaks out, and you then are right back where you started, and you
Yeah,
spent
they
all
they
this money.
give you the sleeves out of their vest. That's what my dad's favorite expression is.
That is exactly what they did. And they do a very, very good job of making doctors believe that they're helping you, right? And not saying anything bad about the companies that are negotiating, because sometimes it's not in their control. But you're spending a lot of time and energy and effort to try to win in a system that the rules are so stacked against you that you will never win. Um, it's
Oh, it's not
Vegas.
a fair
It's
playing field.
Vegas.
That's for sure. The
No,
laws
it's
are
Vegas
absolutely
casinos. Right.
the laws are absolutely out of whack. If you and I
Right.
discuss something, it's collusion. They can
Right.
they can discuss something. They can have the
Oh, they
least favored
all,
nations thing. I mean,
you
it's
know,
insane.
the whole thing with network fee schedules in and of itself is anti-competitive. I mean, they're taking and artificially manipulating and price fixing across however many dental practices in a certain zip code. And I mean, but somehow they're legally allowed to do it. And it's the same with them changing codes after the fact. If you do the composite and they downgrade it to an amalgam, I mean, if I change the code afterwards, it's fraud,
It's fraud.
right? But if they do it, it's Wednesday afternoon. It's
Really
just
like
any other day in the
yeah.
office. But when I
Yep.
look at, I went back and I was looking at these EOBs and I was going, wow, I spent all this money because I did that in 2012. Spent all the money to do the unlock the PPO, and then I had used another one prior to that. And I got a little bit of increase from here and there, but it wasn't anything like major. And some of the fees that Unlock the PPO was able to get me was, like a 10% increase. But what had happened was that 10% then became 8%, and from where it started from, and then it became 6%. And then by the third year, I was like, wow, we're like 4% higher than where we started. Well, what was happening was they were slowly trickling the fees down again. So it was, again, you're trying to catch up with something where the rules are so set against you. The saying that the house always wins exists for a reason. And that's why I stopped playing against the house,
Okay, so you make the decision. You're going to
made the decision, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So, but the way that I got through the first 3 years, right, with just brute force, I thought, oh, I'll just brute force my way on dropping all these plans. I don't advise that. I just got to the point where I literally stopped re-credentialing with insurance companies. I didn't have any conversations with patients. I didn't tell the insurance companies that I wasn't going to be re-upping my contract, and just decided, nope, I'm tired of doing these forms and I'm tired of this entire system, and stopped re-credentialing with a couple of them. United Concordia was one, Cigna was another, and MetLife was another. And all of the ones basically other than Delta were the ones that I basically just didn't re-credential. And knowing now how I did it when I dropped the last one, being Delta, I would sit down like I did and talk to every single patient face to face, explain why we're doing this, explain that the amount of time that we spend with them matters the most to me, because that gives us the opportunity to give them the absolute best care, and to use all of the knowledge and all of the years of studying and the CE and everything else that I've taken to be able to be a better dentist, and to not have to speed through things for somebody else, for a third party that has absolutely nothing to do with patient care. I would have done that if I had taken the time back in 2015 to say, this is why we're doing this, and then send out letters at the end solidifying the date. I've posted the letter that I sent to my patients, and people go, well, nobody reads that. They're just going to throw that in the trash. And I go, they'll read it when you spend the time to explain to them that this is when this is happening, and you'll be getting a letter in the mail to verify the exact date. And we will absolutely be more than happy to continue seeing you, and we will still process the claims on your behalf. And we will still try to maximize whatever out-of-network benefits you have. And even if you don't have out-of-network benefits, you can switch to our in-office membership program. I cannot tell you how many people have dropped their employer-sponsored plan to sign up for our program. And our program is on my website, on my practice webpage, so people can go from anywhere and see what we charge per month and what's included with it. And it gives us that one-to-one doctor-patient relationship that I've worked very, very hard to achieve, and stuck to my principles from the very beginning. Back when I thought, well, we could do accelerated hygiene, every consultant that I hired said, maximize your hygiene. Your hygienist shouldn't be in the room for more than 20 or 30 minutes. And I go, 20 or 30 minutes? How are you even getting past the point of talking to the patient for the first 1 to 2 minutes to try to figure out if there's anything that they want us to focus on? I mean, you're just basically doing a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's not how it should be. And in order to do that, in order to have the time, you need to be reimbursed at a level that covers that time. And I try to work within the system that is stacked against me and all of my colleagues, and decided that I was done playing the game. And it was the best move that I could have made. So,
okay, so you said you dropped 3 plans, sort of call it a knee-jerk reaction. You just dropped them.
Right.
Do you have any idea the retention rate of those people?
I would say that the retention rate of those plans, the people that were on those plans, was very low because of the way that I did it.
So
because
how much percent of the practice? At like 10, 20%, would you say?
I would say, well, so Delta made up 70% of my practice, and then the rest was the remaining 30%. So I don't have exact numbers of the 30%.
Well, that's 70%. So I'm guessing at minimum, the first three that you did that way was probably at least half of that,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Ballpark.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
15%.
Yeah. And we still do have people that have those plans, because I mean, I
Right.
can see who's on what insurance, and it's like, cool. I mean, I still see people that I saw my first week in practice,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's interesting because even though I've been out of network with their plan for a long time, and all of the Delta people since 2021, um, the people that have been with me since the very beginning have a sense of pride that they're still my patient. And I say it's really cool because, it's mutual respect. They trust me because, look, I mean, I take pictures of all of everything, right? And explain everything and take the time to do it, because if I was in their shoes and in the chair that they're sitting in and not the stool that I sit in every day, I would want somebody to spend the time to explain to
Mm-hmm.
me what my needs are and why it's important to do it a certain way, or whatever particular treatment options are available, present the different options, because again, this is not a one size fits all. It shouldn't be a one size fits all profession. We don't run people on a conveyor belt. And when I look back at how we started my practice, that was the only way that I could do it, because we had to be quick. But I was really resistant against cutting corners because I wanted to be able to have these patients for the long haul. And so I look back at all of these people that are still seeing me from the very, very beginning, and I have pride in that too. It's like, okay, we're doing it the right way.
Okay.
And yeah.
So let's go back to it now. So the first three that you dropped, you said you kind of did it knee jerk. Then did you take care of the other 15%, let's say, with a little more finesse before you attacked Delta?
No, so none of them other than Delta. Delta was the only one that I spent the time to talk to every single patient twice. So I spoke to them at their first hygiene visit, and then 6 months later at their second one. Or if they're on a 3 or a 4 month recare scenario, then it was either every other visit or the first and the last. So it was 1 year. I took 12 months. I set a date. Because when COVID hit, I was watching how we were just sitting there with no work, and these insurance companies still collecting premiums with not a penny of claims to pay out, and not reimbursing employers, not reimbursing dentists, not doing anything, saying they were doing all this stuff. Oh, we set up a fund to be able to help dentists. And I'm like, where is that? Where is that? Because I've never seen that. And just seeing how the way that we were treated during COVID, was just kind of the catalyst to say I'm completely done with this system. And it really motivated me, and in a way it forced my hand, because all of these things that I had been planning and working on and wanting to do, it took me to that point where I said, okay, this is what I need to push me over to motivate me to do this. And I hired Gary Takis at the Thriving Dentist Institute, and he helped me with the verbiage and also the mindset of why do you want to do this, right? Because most of what we as dentists deal with on a daily basis since dental school is everything is fear driven. Fear of failing, right? The fear of not getting
You're
that
missing out.
clinic grade that you need to get to, to get all of the points that you need to get out of to graduate. It's going back. Some people just have that mentality back from dental school. So all of it really goes back to dental school. A lot of what we're taught in subconsciously really is, if you do this wrong, you're going to fail. And there's very real consequences, obviously, to that. But I feel like a lot of the dental school mentality follows dentists throughout their entire career, where fear is the factor that they base their decisions off of. And it's emotional. It's not mathematical. It has nothing to do with what are the real implications of staying locked into these contracts for the long haul. What does it mean? What do I have to do in order to meet these constantly falling reimbursements to be able to still deliver the highest level of care that I can deliver? And what are we shown? Like, what are we shown in the marketing materials that comes out of these insurance companies? Either we're the largest, we have 700,000 dentists on our, or however many they say, is in their network. And you look at all those things and you go, well, if I don't stay in this, then the person down the street's going to stay.
Well, that's how they prey on you. They come in and they go, listen, they're going to be down the street. You're going to be out of business.
That's exactly,
everybody's signing up around you.
That's exactly what they do. And I had a couple of representatives come to my office back when I first bought my practice to show their face and act like they're my friend, and we're going to help you, and we're going to get you more patients and all this, and not really understanding what that really meant. And going, you get so deeply entrenched in these things that it's hard to get out of, and it's hard to unwind all of it, because especially now with umbrellas and everything else, I mean, I call them the tentacle plans. It's all of the tentacles. If you cut off one tentacle, the whole thing is still going because you haven't cut off the head. You've got to address the actual root cause of the problem. And, that's like in dentistry, it's like doing half a root canal, right? Like if you do one of the canals and you leave the other one, the tooth is still infected. So
let's talk about this monster that you're now attacking, this over 70% of your practice. So
yes,
that means 7 out of 10 patients. So if you have 10 patients come in that day, 7 of them are in network with this plan.
Right.
What were the results of your due diligence, which is your 2 conversations face to face?
Yes.
Your wonderfully written letter, which I've seen and you've posted many times and you're very willing to share. What were the results after the first year? How much did you see retention? How much did you see lose?
So we, as a whole, for that one particular plan or that one particular insurance company, we saw an attrition rate of about 20%. And what we ended up seeing on the revenue side was a 20% increase from the best year that I ever had being in network. And I thought, what took me so long to do this? Why did I wait? And I just keep going back to, I was afraid.
Yep.
And it was literal fear that kept me trapped in a system that you have to run faster and faster and faster on the treadmill. And every year that goes by, they bump it up 1/10 of a mile an hour. Keep going faster. We're going to cut the fees faster, do it cheaper. Hurry. Cut corners. I look back and I go, why did I wait? And I know why I waited. It was fear.
Yeah.
And again, the catalyst that really pushed me to do this was the unprecedented times that we lived through in our lifetime, unprecedented for our lives, through COVID, being shut down in my state for 8 weeks and going, wow, I mean, if this thing fails, it's not because of something I did wrong. I mean, even being in network to that up until that point, I mean, we were getting the same number of new patients that we have now. And I'm not talking like 50, 60, 80, like some dentists will post, oh, we got 100 new patients last month. It's like, yeah, but what really came from that? How fast did you have to run in the wheel to make that even work? Because 100 patients, like some of these schedules that I see people post that are in every single plan under the sun, it's like, how do you even have time to walk from room to room? Like there is no daylight in those schedules. And
so what's a new patient per month look like for you now?
So we average about 10 new patients a month.
About 10.
And what's crazy is we were about that when we were in network with Delta. So I was still sitting writing off almost 45% of my fee to get a pulse training, blame, what it's like, blame the marketing, blame what we were seeing.
So you were writing off about 40 to 45% of your revenue when you were fully in that
When I was
PPO
fully
plan.
in on
Right.
PPO, right? I was PPO plus Premier, but what you find out is when you're on that, you never get paid Premier rates. You always get paid the least amount that you've
Right.
agreed to.
Okay,
And
so
that was also something I didn't know either until after really starting to look at the EOBs during that time, back after I had negotiated fees. And Delta doesn't negotiate, but I was looking at what I was getting paid, because then I was actually learning how to read EOBs and understand what, how is this actually functioning?
did
And
Delta come back after you dropped and said, "Hey, we want you to come back. We'll give you better fees"?
no.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
and
So
it's funny because I'm like, I had gotten Cigna an email from them a couple of months ago that said, "Hey, we want you to rejoin our network." And I responded with Dr. Evil saying, "How about no?" And just put the GIF up there. I was like, "No, I'm never ever going back." I mean,
Mhm.
I have no reason to, because the way that we've set our practice up is to differentiate ourselves from that conveyor belt style of practice that a lot of people don't want to be in. They don't want to go there, but they don't know what options they have, because the amount of marketing that you have to overcome is
Mhm.
tremendous.
What were the top three things you did to
Top,
differentiate yourself?
well, top three things would absolutely be technological advancements, right? Cone beam, prime scan, laser, 3D printer. I mean, turning around a night guard in one business day compared to a month. If a patient loses their night guard on vacation and they come back and they go, "Oh man, I don't want to have to wait I can't sleep without this thing." Don't worry about it. We're going to have it made for you tomorrow. And they're like, "Tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, we can do that now." And then they go, "Man, you can do everything." And I'm like, "Yeah, you came to the right place." And I think a lot of it too is also, when we see a new patient, I spend about 15 minutes in my consult room, not in an operatory, in a consult room, talking face to face, like we're doing right now. And I really get to know who this person is, because why are you here? Right? Number one, what brought you in? Is it pain? Is it because you haven't been in a long time? Is it your daughter's getting married and you want to have better looking teeth for the wedding photos? What is it, right? You won't know any of that if you're just popping people in and just sticking an X-ray sensor in their mouth. So we spend time to really know who these people are and what motivated them to come in, because they could have picked anybody, right? I have 4 dentists that share a parking lot with me, and we're all in 4 different practices, and they could have picked anyone. And not that those other dentists are, worse than I am, or they actively chose to come and see me. So I want to know why that is. And I also want to know for the reasons of how do we also market for that? What is bringing these people in? "Hey, I heard you have a laser and you can do fillings without a needle." And I say, "Absolutely." And what my assistant also does is take the patient around and give them a tour of the office before they even meet me. Here's this, here's our laser, here's our scanner, here's our 3D printer, here's our hygienist. It's all about building that relationship from the moment that they walk in the door. It really goes to that personal level of care that I feel is the most important thing out of all of this. So that would be number 2. Number 3, I would say, is my staff, is my team. Like, the people that we have are fantastic. I mean, they're phenomenal people, and they care about our patients as much as I do, even though they're not doing the work that I'm doing. They care at the level that I care. And that's hard to find, right? It's hard to find. But I also, in a way, trained that, because I take them places. We've gone to Las Vegas a couple of times to Dent Splice around the world. I've sent my my front desk team off to ADOM meetings. I've sent my assistant down to Digital Enamel in Texas. You know, my hygienists have been to RDH under one roof, and I pay for that stuff because I believe in it and I think it's important. And I feel like if we can build a cohesive team, why wouldn't a patient want to come into our office, right? Why wouldn't, at the moment that they get off the phone, they're like, wow, that's a place I really want to go. And the dentist isn't on the top of everybody's list of places that they want to be at, right? But we
Right.
have people that come in and they're excited to be here.
So
You know, our
you've
patients are
taken this
excited.
$400,000 practice, right? Have you tripled it?
So we went from, so my last year in network, I was just below 900.
Wow, you're humping it.
And then my first year out of network, we broke 1 million for the first time. And then last year we were at 1.1. And what I ended up doing was also going from a 4-day work week down to a 3-day work week.
But remember though, you took a $400,000 PPO practice and you doubled it. You're
Yeah.
humping it. You're humping it.
Yeah. Well, we almost have tripled it now, because it'll
Right.
be
That's what I said.
time.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
By the time we get done, I've got a couple of other things that I want to be adding. I mean, you know, we've been doing some full arch hybrid cases, the restorative side, the prosthetic side. And those cases are incredible, right? It changes people's lives. And when the patients get to see what they look like and how their teeth feel, how everything feels, right? They haven't felt that for decades or however long it's been. And to change a life, right? I mean, it's incredible. And you can't really, it's not to say that you can't do that being in network, but it is a whole lot hard to do it when you're locked into fees that barely pay your day-to-day operations.
Right.
And when you can then spend the appropriate amount of time learning how to do more things, you know, Botox is another thing. And yeah, it's not for foreheads, but it could be, right? But it's
But
more
think about it, right? You got a 20% growth
yes.
and you reduced your office hours 25% from 4 days to 3.
Right. And I also take off more time during the year because I've got 3 kids and my oldest is 13 now and my youngest is about to be 3, and they're all 3 in different things and in different locations at all times. And
Yeah, you
so
gotta be present.
it's trying to be everywhere at once, which I would rather be as many places for my kids as I can be. And so taking extra time off allows me to do that. So working one less day a week, you know, I take my son up skiing. My wife is skiing now, even though she grew up in Houston and, you know, isn't really inclined to be in the cold, but it's like we get to spend more time together during the winters. And then what I ended up doing, so it's not 3 days a week all year. It's a rotational type thing where I do 3 days a week in the winter and 3 days a week in the summer when my kids are out of school. And then during the spring and the fall, I'm 4 days, but have the opportunity to, you know, on those days, on those times of the year when I'm working 3 days a week, we can add that 4th day in if we've got a giant case to do or, you know, things that I don't want to necessarily be having to get up to do exams on the hour, and just need more time to be able to work straight through, especially with the digital workflow. It's like once you get the scan, everything just starts going from there. So it's like, it really has allowed me to develop a better workflow during the time that I'm in the office and a better, you know, the whole work-life balance thing, which work is work, right? And so when you're there, you want to be happy when you're there and you want to be able to be in tune when you're there and be on top of your game and not be stressed and tired and pushed and just constantly have all of these outside forces that are pushing you in all these directions that you may or may not have any control over. And so being able to get control of that back is really what's important. And then it gives you the time to make your practice however you want it. You can do whatever procedures you want to or don't want to. I don't do any endo. I don't do any extractions. I have never placed an implant. I'd love to, but also the time that it takes to do some of the other things that I've been focused on is where I'm putting all of my time and effort and money and attention to right now. But it's like, as the years go on, I mean, I've been out of network now. Well, it'll be 3 years in October. So I've not been letting the grass grow under my feet. It's been like, okay, I want to learn how to do more things and to be better at this. But it does take time to build all of that too. I imagine that 10 years from now, my practice is going to look entirely different than it does today.
Mhm.
But this gives the opportunity to have so much more freed up capital and time that you're using your days effectively, and you're being able to prolong your career. Because as the years go by and as the locked in monopoly of fee schedules keeps falling, you're going to hit a ceiling at some point where you can't produce, you cannot outrun that. It's the whole, like, if you're trying to lose weight, you can't outrun the kitchen. So you can work out all 7 days of the week, but if you eat poorly, if your diet is poor, you're not going to lose weight. And it's the same with PPO contracts. You can work as fast as you possibly can, but if you continuously have these decreasing fees, you're never going to be able to outwork that.
Don't disagree. When you started to, so your path is a little different. Most people will celebrate some success early with some smaller plans, like the low-hanging fruit, right? Where you didn't, you just dropped them and you lost a lot of those patients. Now
Right.
you're ready to tackle the big guy, but you had the mindset, I'm not going back. So you had, to me, the most critical thing is the commitment to move forward without.
Right.
And there's no going back, to burn the boats, whatever
Right.
analogy you want to call it, right?
Right.
So now you do this with Delta. At any point, do you question yourself?
Oh, yes. There were nights where I'd be up just thinking about, like, what's going to happen when I do this. And you end up building up a lot of boogeyman. You know, you're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, am I doing what you're trying to accomplish is literally for the best outcome for your patients, your practice, your employees, your family, and it's all on this one decision, right? And your brain is being clouded by the marketing of, you're going to fail, you're going to lose, you know, everybody's going to leave you. You hear that all the time. And what I always say, now that I've been through it, is the people that oftentimes say you're going to lose everybody has not done this. They have not dropped insurances. They have not dropped one or any. They're certainly not fully out of network. The ones that are out of network oftentimes say what I said earlier. Why didn't I do this sooner?
Hey, they all said it.
All of us have
I
said
swear to God, that is such a common answer.
it is.
The one mistake I made, I didn't do this sooner. That's
it. Yes, that comment is across the board.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to me why more of us aren't going, okay. And I have seen it, actually. I have seen more and more people reach out to me and say, hey, I've been encouraged. Like, it's kind of funny. My sister-in-law, so my family still lives in Ohio, and my sister-in-law was telling me the other day, about a month ago, that her dentist near Canton, Ohio, said, I didn't really put it together before, but Allman, are you related to Dan Allman? She goes, yeah, that's my brother-in-law. And her dentist goes, you know, some of the things that I've seen and read have encouraged me that he's written to go out of network. And I did. And that's right. That's in Canton, Ohio. It can literally happen. This can happen in any corner of the country. And I always, the other argument is, other than you're going to lose everybody, is that won't happen in my area.
That won't work here.
That can't happen for me. That
won't work here. Yeah.
There's no way. Well, if you believe that, then it won't. Right. But if you sit down and you take the time to really dig into this, you have to have the mindset that, like you said, and I love that saying, Sonny, because it's one of the first, you're probably the first person I've ever heard it from, is burn the boats. And that is so aggressive. And it's like, I love that, because how else are you going to move something forward when you're pushing against something that has so much force? You have got to stick to a plan. You have got to make a plan, and everybody's path is going to be a little bit different when they do this. And that's fine.
But
Make
when
it
you've
your
taken
own.
away the retreat, like there's nowhere to go.
There is nowhere to go.
You figure out a way forward.
But you're looking at it from the standpoint of, I am going to plant the flag, I am going to build my own thing, and I am going to do it my way, and no one is going to tell me otherwise. And if they do, let them have their opinion. I don't care. This is what I'm doing, and it is going to allow me to provide the best care that I can provide and not be pushed to do something below my standards. And it really just gets down to the point of, you have to have a plan, and you have to say, okay, all of the things that are swirling around of, you can't do this here, that won't work in my area. My area is super saturated. Well, mine is too, and the taxes where I'm at are very high. Everything is expenses to live here, very, very high, significantly higher than where I grew up. So you have to look at it from that perspective of, I have to find a way to make this work mathematically. I have got to take the emotion and suppress it a little bit. Not to say just be a robot, but it's like, because I do care about if patients leave. And I understand that some of them say, well, I've got to go because I need to go wherever my cleaning is free. And I look at that and I go, well, the cost to deliver it is not free. It's never been free. It will never be free. No matter who it is, I'm not going to cost shift it onto other patients. Everybody is treated the same in my practice. They all pay the same. We don't have 85 different fee schedules.
Right.
And that allows me to be consistent in all facets of my practice. And it's how I treat my patients. It's how I treat my team. I treat everybody fairly, and everybody's on the same level playing field. And what you end up doing is, when you do decide I'm going to go out of network, is you start to equalize this entire profession, because it is so out of whack right now and it starts with these fee schedules. It starts with this, and then you want to talk about corporate invasion and all the other stuff that's happening, private equity flooding in. We're going to be better at running a business than you. We're going to take the problem. All the problems are going to go away, doctor, if you just sell to us.
Well,
And
remember though, with the business model, when it's profit first, patient last, that's, to me, that might work for a bit. But in the end, I think it's going to get figured out.
I think it will too.
Like you're starting to see with medicine, very slowly, but
Right.
they've gone too far, and they have a long way to recover.
Oh, yeah.
We can learn something from them.
And we should. And there's a group that I recently started following called Take Medicine Back.
Yep.
Facebook. And they just, there were ER doctors that went on strike last week in Detroit. And it has to happen. I mean, the message has to be, patient care is always first. Clinical outcome matters more than anything else. And if a patient says, I want to go somewhere else because it's cheaper, I understand. I get it. I didn't grow up in a household that had really any money. And to me, it's never been about how much can I rake this person over the coals. It's how much do I need to charge to be able to give them the absolute best that I can give? And the conclusion was, I can't have these third parties pushing down on me and not being able to keep my practice growing the way that I want it to grow, and attract the right people to work in my practice and to spend the time with patients, so that when I do inevitably see them out in the grocery store or wherever at my son's games, or, out skiing, because I always see people wherever I go. I'm proud of the fact that we treated them the way that we treated them. Mm-hmm. And, they oftentimes will say, hey, I sent my friend, or I sent my mom, or, it's like my parents are moving here from somewhere else and they need a dentist, and I can't wait for them to meet you. It's like stuff like that, right? How many times would you ever think like a dentist is going to be in a conversation of people go, I can't wait for this person to meet you, right? It's pretty cool. And, and there's many other dentists in my town that are just like me in that regard. And it's not that, we are all trying to treat people the best way we can. But what it comes down to is you have to be compensated fairly. And it gives you that opportunity then to also rethink the way that you're going to run your practice. It's just giving me more energy because I can actually now recover a little bit because this is not a physically easy job, even though you're quote unquote sitting all day. It's hard. It's hard to do this right. I mean, we work with no margin of error. I mean, our margin of error is measured in millimeters, and it is not easy. And so when you're trying to rush through something because you can't do it any other way, and you're being forced by these invisible market forces, that's not right. And it should be better than that. And and I've told patients before too, look, if the system was set up fairly to reimburse you correctly, not denying a claim just because of the day of the week, then I would sign up back in network all over again if it was a fair system, if it actually took care of patients the way that they advertise. But it doesn't. They spend millions of dollars advertising, and they try to spend $0 on actually following through with that advertising. And if it was different, and if it was a fair system, and if it allowed me to keep the level of care that I'm committed to keeping, then I'd be in network. But it's not. It's not even anywhere near that. And we'll see what happens with dental loss ratios. Massachusetts got something through, which is amazing. I really hope we can get it nationally. And I hope that it follows the Massachusetts model where all of the dollars are accounted for, and executive compensation is not included in patient care because it shouldn't be. Marketing shouldn't be included. Donations to their own foundations shouldn't be included. There's a lot of things that really need to change. And if the system worked and functioned correctly, then I wouldn't have a problem being back in network. But it's so far outside of what is possible to be able to continue practicing the way that I practice, that staying my own course and doing what I'm doing now is exactly where I'm going to be. And I'll never go back. Because I don't see it really changing dramatically to the point of being fair to anyone but the people that funnel the money away from the patient care, because that's essentially what it is.
How do people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach me would be, you could send me an email at dr.alleman, ALLEMAN, at allemandfamilydental.org.
Okay.
And you can also find me on Facebook. Facebook Messenger works. Sometimes I don't get all the messages immediately, but I try to answer as many. I usually get about a dozen or so messages from dentists a week. And I'm not making any money off of this. It's not about me trying to do a side hustle or anything. It's just like to know that this is possible, and this is something that can certainly be done. It's been done in the past. It's being done right now. It will continue to be done in the future. And as more dentists start seeing this and are encouraged to say, hey, I want to stay high level, and I want to be on the cutting edge, and I want to be able to give my patients that experience that they deserve, the dentist will eventually come to that conclusion that this is the only way to do it.
Well, couldn't have said it better myself. Dan, appreciate your time. Great stuff. People want to reach Dan. I know he's more than willing and more than helpful, and he's passionate about his beliefs and the delivery of quality care in a proper dental controlled setting, which means the dentist is in control, not a third disinterested party. So I'm
Doctors
with you, brother.
Always.
Thanks, man.
Great conversation. Yeah, thank you. Always look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee-for-Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.